there's a chapter in here, The Intimidator. Now, we all know who that was. Sure wish he was here so I could read this book. He probably wouldn't be happy with me. I got a couple more laughs. No, really, Dale Jr. has read it. And I don't know if you watched his podcast when he was talking about it. He said, man, Geoff wrote a lot of good stuff about my dad. Well, he was a great guy until he put that helmet on. As a lot of you know, I think Deb probably does, that he helped a lot of people off the track personally. But when he put that darn helmet on, I don't know, there's a nail in the top or something. It turned him mean. But still, he's a great guy. I wish he was here. And the last line of the chapter, The Intimidator, Dale Jr., the other day on his podcast said, I don't know why he said that. I don't know why he said that. I don't know who told him. Well, Dale Jr. told me that. I wouldn't have put it in there unless he told me that line. Now, I'm not going to tell you what it is. You're going to have to buy a book. But, yeah, I miss him. It's about, my wife hates me to say this. It's about how people cheated back in the day. You know, we used to have this big play box, way big, we could do things in. You know, there were rules, so if you went against the rule, that was cheating, right? I always went around the rule. That's kind of how we build our bobsleds. And it wasn't really cheating. Now, after I designed a lot of stuff, NASCAR outlawed them, said you couldn't do that anymore. So I just kept trying to design more stuff, which we did. But so that's interesting. I don't name names. I'm not out to hurt anybody, but you might figure out who some of these people were. You know, one guy blew an engine up after he won to Winston, and, you know, I'm sure it wasn't a big engine. No one's laughing. Come on. We all know who that was. Yeah. And, you know, a lot of stuff in the modified days. You know, the sad part is when I was racing late models, Xfinity now, they're not counting all the races I won in that. It's all the same. Xfinity, it was late model, it was Grand National, and now it's Xfinity. But they don't count those races, so I'm a little disappointed about that. And the last chapter is why I wrote the book. And has anyone seen the book? Anyone read it? Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks a lot, guys. Okay, I'm going to read this on the back side. Rick Henrik wrote the foreword in the book. And TNN, Trinity Broadcasting, published the book for me. It's Christian Network, right? Because, you know, I put in there, I know why my life has been like it is. All the good stuff is because of God, accepting Jesus. I take credit for all the bad stuff I've done. I didn't listen. But Rick wrote a piece in there, and they had to take out a few letters and some words he said. But it's funny. But the back of the book, it says, race fans along with Christians always want to know the rest of the story. My book will help teach the non-race fan about auto racing, and for all readers, it will show how true faith in God and accepting Jesus as our Lord and Savior might give them a miracle when they need one. There's no question I got one in Daytona. Who saw that crash? You guys that haven't seen it, go on YouTube. It's there. Come on. But no, it's spectacular. A lot of people say, oh, that was a bad crash. I said, no, it was a great crash. I survived. And the only reason I survived was my faith. You know, I had my faith a long time before that crash. But in this book, it tells why the crash happened. And because there was a reason why it happened. And what happened during the crash, and, of course, what happened afterwards. So that's the most important chapter in the book. And that's why Dominic, right over there, that guy with the hat on like mine, he was a writer. And he kept trying to change my words and what I was telling him. He lives in New Mexico, so we do a lot on the phone. And I said, Dominic, I've never said that word in my life. I don't talk that way. I don't even know what that word means. He kept trying to make it proper. I said, no, use my words, and that's me. I want it to be me, not anyone else. But so anyway, he worked hard on this. We worked, 3, 4, what do you say, Dominic? 5 years? Off and on. It was my fault it took so long because how do you end a book when you're still doing things? I couldn't end a book. And I don't remember a lot. My brothers would tell me stories. Oh, we got to put that in there. So we'd put that story in. And I say, I really did that? Yeah. It's funny how your brain works or doesn't work. There's things I have no recollection of doing in my life. I'm sure I see a lot of faces that are in my generation. Who's 75? Who's in the 70s? You other guys aren't admitting it. I know. That's all right. That's all right. But that was a great generation we were in for racing with Dale Earnhardt, with Bill Elliott, Harry Gant, Cale Yarborough. Man, I miss him. He was a great guy. Of course, the Ellisons. I could keep naming names, of course. Sterling Marlin, Kenny Schrader. It was really fun back then. People ask, wouldn't you like to be out there today racing? I said, heck no. They're not going fast enough. Come on now. I like to go 197 miles an hour. What's wrong with me?
Record still standing here at Atlanta Motor Speedway for the fastest qualifying lap.
Yeah.
What was it like that day making that lap?
It's Tim Brewer. A lot of you folks know Tim Brewer. He was a crew chief for Junior Johnson's teams, and then I hired him when I had the 7 team and for a while. And after practice, I told him, I said, Tim, I think I can run around here wide open. Now I was expecting a look like, really? Or, oh, I don't know. He just said, well, go do it. He was a guy of not many words. He said, just go do it. And I did it. And thank God I made it around. I was worried about turn 2 because there was a little patch in the first time they made the track, and they had to patch a little spot and coming off turn 2. And I was worried about that, but I got through it. And I said, well, 3 and 4 is easier than 1 and 2. It's not as sharp. Gradual corner going in. I went in there, and things were going good, feeling good. And coming off turn 4, there's some little humps in the asphalt. And so the front of the car started moving a little bit. And that concerned me because I thought, well, this could be into the wall or not. But we made it through, and no one could believe I went that fast. I was disappointed, really. I'm not that kind of guy, but I was disappointed. I thought I could go 198. So I was disappointed we didn't get there.
Well, let's see if there's any questions from anybody here. If we've got some, we'll get a mic to you. We'll start down here, and then we'll go there to the middle.
Sure. Thank you, Geoff. Ray Aker, Skyview Sports. Donnie Ellison just passed away recently. Do you have a Donnie story?
No, Donnie hasn't passed.
Wait.
Cale Yarborough just passed.
Oh, Cale Yarborough. I'm sorry.
Ooh, you scared everybody.
Yeah, there you go. I'm sorry about that, the coffee.
Yeah.
What's a great story that you got on him?
Yeah, I've got one. I have one. I love Cale. He was one of my heroes when I wasn't in the sport and wanting to get in the sport. And when we were racing at Rockingham, man, we got to get that track back. We got Wilkesboro back. Now we got get Rockingham back. That's a real racetrack. Ask anyone that's raced on it. I mean, it's tough. You got to handle, you got to drive. But we were, when I drove the Spectrum Furniture car, my first year, and started a race, man, I got lapped. Cale lapped me, but it rained. It rained out, so we had to come back. And I told my crew chief, Darryl Bryan, I said, Darryl, this car was real loose, so when you're changing the spark plugs and warming it up, put a couple rounds of wedge in there right front, which he did. You know, you weren't supposed to do those things, but everybody did. I unlapped myself, and I was leading the race, coming around to lap Cale Yarborough. I couldn't believe it. I mean, we were just absolutely flying. And coming off turn 4, the car wiggled. Well, I thought, it just hit some oil or something, a little water. So I went into turn 1 pretty easy. I wasn't in any hurry. And I got in the gas, and the car spun out. The ratchet had broke. They had springs in there, and the spring failed, and I spun out, crashed the car. So, but can you imagine he lapped me to start the race, and I was getting ready to lap Cal Yarborough, one of my heroes. I mean, it was awesome. That's my Cal Yarborough story. But actually, I was dealing with a nutritional drink, Monavie. I don't know if anyone heard of it. It has acai juice in it and all that. Not doing it now, but I knew Cal had some health problems, so I called him up and sent him a whole bunch of it for him to drink. And it's sad that he's passed away because he was a really good man. You know, he's a good fighter too. If we remember down in turn 3 at Daytona.
Let's go over here real quick. We'll get one more after that, and we'll get to our next thing. But right down over here.
Stephen Toronto, CBS Sports. Jeff, I actually have a question from a reader who's read the book. Is the Powderpuff story true?
Everything in this book is true. I wouldn't put it in there. And no, I was. My parents, built a racetrack. I was a year old. I started racing when I was 5, and but I worked chicken farm, dairy farm, dirt racetrack. So I helped my dad every week getting the track ready, throwing rocks, driving the tractors, and watering. And during the week, if somebody wanted to test there, when I got home from school, my mother would say, Jeffrey, so-and-so wants to test, open the gate. So I was up there, and this guy, Pat Judson, was testing, and watching him go around, and he got done testing, and I was just standing there drooling, tongue out, and he said, hey, you want to drive? I said, excuse me? Well, I didn't say that, but I said, what? He said, yeah, jump in there. Of course, you didn't need a fire suit back then. So I had my cowboy boots on and my cut-off sweatshirt and, looking real cool back then. And he let me get in the car and go. Well, I got out there and go around and around and around. And they started waving me in, and I kept going. Thank goodness the fuel tank was pretty small back then. So it finally ran out of gas, and I coasted in. And they said, man, you were running. I'm glad you're not racing now. You were running as faster than I was. I knew I could drive. I had an uncle that drove. I just watched him. I learned. So every week, every month, my father would have a Powderpuff Derby for the ladies. They had some good lady drivers back in those days. And one was Nettie Ellis, and I can't name the rest, but she was really good. So I came up with this idea. My cousin Pam, boyfriend, had a race car. Mike Casterline, it's all in here, number 588. So I said, I asked Mike, can I borrow your car this weekend? Well, what? You can't race. I said, no, I want to enter the Powderpuff Derby. He laughed. He said, well, heck yeah. I borrowed a wig from my cousin Pam because back then we didn't have the big helmets. It's a small helmet. And so they were already out there making a pace lap. I just drove out behind them. The car stayed in, back then. Who's 580? We don't know. It's okay. Just another woman out there. So I ended up leading the race, and it's getting towards the end. And I said, darn, I can't win. My father always gave the winner a hug, a kiss, and a trophy. I said, I can't win. So I had to decide whether to face the music of racing or pull off and not finish. So I shut the engine off, coasted off. The Perrier was dark, no big lights back in those days, and no one knew I'd done that except my cousin and Mike. And, of course, they told my brother Brett, and he told that story to my parents at their 50th wedding anniversary. And my mother took her finger and shook at me, Jeffrey, you shouldn't have done that. And she was still mad at me, but they got a big laugh out of it. But that's a true story. I dressed up as a girl. You girls have some nice clothes, nice and soft and silky. And drove a race car in a Powderpuff Derby.
I'll tell him that. Thank you, Jeff.
We'll got one more down over here, and we'll.
I'm just getting these guys laughing a little bit. Come on, I got more funny stories.
Jacob Zielman, Raceface Digital.
Hi.
Jeff, 1984, April 29th. You're with what was then a young Rick Hendrick, and go into that weekend, and nobody's sure if you're going to make it to the next weekend. You go win Martinsville. You win the 500 a couple years later. How gratifying for you has it been to watch and see what Rick has built since then, knowing that, really it all started with you guys back in the 80s?
Well, just think if because we're all the same. We're all people. You know, we all do different things. God gave us different talents and all that stuff. Just think if you changed one thing in your life, how many people would that affect? We don't know, but just think about it. What it would do to you and the people you know. Well, that's what that race at Martinsville means to me. If I hadn't stayed in that office to wait for his answer about hiring me to drive, you know, I said, can I wait out in the waiting room? Because we didn't have cell phones back then. I said, man, I've gone, that phone never rings sometimes. So I said, can I wait for the answer? And then he came out and said, you got it. What if I hadn't waited and that phone never rang? How many people would that affect? Because he was going to shut the doors. There might not be a Hendrick Motorsports. And he'll tell you there probably wouldn't be because he spent a lot of money. He wasn't a big car dealer like he is today. So how many thousands of people would that have affected? Well, not even just the people that work for him or around him, but race fans and Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson. You don't know. But it's just mind-boggling thinking about that. Now, I don't take any credit for waiting for the answer. I give God the credit. He put it in my head. I'm just a farm boy. I used to shovel chicken manure and cow manure and get the chickens. The roosters used to chase me around in the chicken hen, the barn. So why did I wait? Why did that come in my mind? It's like building bobsleds. Don't give me any credit. I was watching the Olympics and it just came to my head. You need to build some bobsleds, American-made bobsleds. So yeah, just think if that hadn't happened at Martinsville. And we're going to celebrate that up. Jeff Gordon and I are going to be Grand Marshals at Martinsville. Rick's going to drive the pace car. And then at the Charlotte race, Rick's having a couple of days of fan appreciation at the shop. Of course, I'll be there for that. So, and if any of you haven't got a book, I'll be there with my books.
Where can folks get the book?
Well, you know, we're right out here seeing the fans. Fans are really great. See a lot of Earnhardt hats and jackets. They loved Old Dale. And but we're out front doing it now. But you can go on Amazon and purchase the book. You can go on Barnes & Noble. And this blows me away because I shop there a lot. You can go on Walmart website and buy my book. I never thought that would ever happen. That's crazy. Or you can go on, it's Team Bodine. Now write this down, guys. I know you got pens. Put it on your computer. teambodine.square.site, S-I-T-E. And that'll come to us. I'll autograph the book. Of course, we send it back to you. And the only way you can get it autographed is either that way or at a function like this. But
well, thank you so much for joining us here this morning. Talk a little bit about the book and your career. Really appreciate you taking some time to stop by.
Well, I got one more thing. Do you guys remember, you old folks out there like me, remember that record we made back in the late 80s? Country music record. Ned Jarrett narrates it, and then Kyle Petty's on it. Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s on it. Rusty, myself, Cale, you name it. We still have some of those left, so we're out here with that, and we made a CD a long time ago. So with the book, we're putting that out there. People are buying them, and it's really great. But it's really a cool album. Nashville songwriters wrote our songs for us. Jeannie Seeley wrote mine. And I invested in a project. Now, every other driver, there's 21 of us on a record, they said, I don't want a slow, sad country song. Everyone said that but me. I have the slow, sad, tear-jerking country song. Let's go figure. Anyway, I thought I'd get some laughs out of it. I see some smiles, but Wild Bill Elliott, that's how he starts his song. He goes, I'm Wild Bill Elliott, a crazy racing man. But if you listen to the record, I think somebody else says their name first too, but you can't tell who's singing. So if you get the record, don't look at who's singing it and try to figure it out. You can't tell. Our voices all change when we try to sing. Mine goes really high. I got some laughs finally.
Yeah, you
Thank
did.
you. Hey, great guys. Really great seeing all of you. I missed all of you, a lot of new people. Glad you're here covering the sport, the business, whatever you want to call it. And let's pray for a great, safe race today. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
And I'll be here for pictures, any more questions, shake your hand, sign your body. You know, a guy came up to me. Well, I've got two body stories. I was at Darlington after race. This guy came up with a little short-haired dog, you know, like Spanky Hour game, real short hair. Now, he'd been drinking. He said, "Hey, sign my dog." I said, "Well, will he bite me?" "No, he won't bite." So I signed this dog. And another story, a guy, and I'm not sure what race it was, came up and pulled his shirt out and said, "Sign right here." I said, "Why would you want me to sign there?" "Well, I'm going to get it tattooed." I don't know if he did, but I signed there. Now, there's other stories I can tell, but I can't tell you. You're
Thank
not
you.
old. You're not old enough.